Alright, response video to the Modern Mystic. It's going to be more boring economic stuff. And yes, I should put it on the economics channel, but I'm not going to. Maybe next time. Maybe some, but whatever. It just really doesn't matter. Yeah, it really doesn't. So it's an economics video. United States don't watch. It's going to be on the general subject of the gold standard and I guess fractional reserve banking. Yeah, I don't think these are useless subjects, but I don't think they really get to the problem at all. And I don't, I just think it's a misidentification of what we want as a system, which is everybody works as good as they can work, and yeah, you get the most work possible out of people, so we get to the future as fast as possible without exploitation and usury and abuse. That really shouldn't be that hard to do. So I mean, that's the overall objective, is for us to be efficient consumers and efficient producers. Yeah, is that unattainable without us being selfish cunts? I don't think so. But anyway, that's not the subject. So this is the subject. So this whole obsession with the dollar, and I'm obsessed with cash because these people have no respect for cash, and cash is not the same as a bank digit. As I've stated in the previous video, as I'd like to establish as a premise we all agree on for the sake of conversation, is that a bank digit is like a check. And cash is like cash. And we can tell the difference between a check and cash. I mean, you do know the difference. I think you do. I would hope you do. And if you can't tell the difference, then you maybe have to have a conversation about that. But, it's just kind of funny. Okay, so in this video that, I watched the video. So Forbes was doing some spiel, and he's whining about stuff, and he's talking about the gold standard, and he talks about how gold is rare, and it's just the right amount of rareness, and it's just the right, and it's like these are just exactly the same things I could say about cash money. And that's the other problem here, right? They have the conversation, people talk about money and cash as if they're the same thing, and they're not the same thing. Money is debt. Money is liability. Cash doesn't have the liability thing, like I explained before. If I send cash out into the world, it's a universal contract. It doesn't have any strings attached. There are strings attached to a check. Okay, it comes back to the guy who wrote it, and he has to produce the cash. Yeah, ironically. So anyway, but the irony, the point I'm making here is that gold, everything gold has that's good, cash has. And everything gold has that's bad, like hoarding, inflexible, you can dig it out of the ground, counterfeiting, it's easier to counterfeit probably. Lots of liabilities to gold money. Cash, gold cash. Let's be careful of these two words, cash and money. Two different things. Now, I mean, in my book, cash was always money, checks were checks. Okay, so digits should be called checks. They shouldn't even be called money. They should be called checks. Anyway, yeah, some evilest guy sent me cigarettes again. I have to kiss him right on the fucking mouth someday. Anyway, yeah, it's just really nice. And not that, not that he'd want that, but, it's something you gotta do. I could rub oil on him or something. Anyway, separate subject, I believe. Yeah, that is. Completely different than the subject. So anyway, so it does this, obviously we control how much cash is in the world. We're doing it. We have done it successfully. I think they could have done it better, but I'm just saying we have controlled it pretty well. There's only 1.2 trillion, not that much, of cash liberated. So it can be controlled. It can be, if inflation gets out of control, you can wind it down. You can buy the cash off the market. You can do things. So let's not pretend we can't control the integrity of the dollar, because we have complete control over it, where we wouldn't have control over gold. Gold means the Chinese or the Russians or anybody who gets pissed off at us can fuck with our economy by dumping gold onto the market or taking it off the market. I think it'd be just very stupid to have a standard that's not a standard. Gold is not a very good standard. You know, in the last 50 years it's gone from what, $20 an ounce to $2,500 an ounce? Not exactly something you want to base your economy on. So anyway, the other part of this, I guess, would be, is does the gold standard mean no fractional reserve banking? Is that what they mean by gold standard? That no bank can ever lend money that's not gold? They can't create a bank check anymore, a bank digit? Okay, well then that's another subject. So if all lending has to be in gold, that's another subject, right? I mean, that's an extension on the subject, if that's what a gold standard means. I don't think that's what a gold standard meant in 1971, where Forbes says the world came to an end. Anyway, the real subject is debt, right? I mean, if we had a gold standard, is that going to change Reaganomics any? Is that going to change the idea of, well, let's just make more bonds and cut taxes on the rich? Yeah. Instead of paying the bills, we'll borrow. Borrow and spend. That was, he called the other people tax and spenders, and he was a borrow and spender. And that became the new philosophy, and we haven't stopped since. So, yeah, debt is another subject, isn't it? I think debt has more to do with the circumstance we're in, deficit spending, than not being on a gold standard. So I guess these guys think differently, but I don't know how. So would they say if we're on a gold standard, there won't be any more debt? The government won't be able to borrow money? They'll only be able to borrow gold? And at what interest rate? What would your bond rate be on gold? That would be interesting to figure out. So, yeah, I just don't know exactly where to bend the subject from there, but I'll just read some of the stuff that occurred to me while listening to it. Gold standard from my perspective would just move inflation to commodities. So that was one of the things I pointed out, is that if you're gonna make surplus gold, that means all the rich people are gonna hold a lot of gold. And the only thing they're going to buy with it is something as good as gold, and that's going to mean commodities. You're not going to sell your gold to buy stock. So the stock market's not going to go too far, and commodity prices are going to go up. So not too good for the regular people who mostly do the drink water, eat food, go to work thing. They're not going to win on the gold standard. Again, the going off gold, what had more impact on the economy? Going off gold or Reagan's cuts on capital gains taxes? Come on. I think it's obvious which one had a bigger impact on the runaway bad investment, in the sense that everybody started investing in rackets and gimmicks because capital gains were almost tax-free. Alright, so I'll just emphasize before I switch the page that, there's no free lunch. So, to have, like I said, you want people to be working, but if you want to have them working at usury rate wages, you want to exploit desperation and have exploitation, well then, yeah, you're not going to create civilization that's going to be worth anything. You're going to create a slave state. You're going to have a plantation state. So a tiny percentage of the people will live very comfortably, and this other percentage will be beaten into the ground. And if that's the goal of these people, then their goal isn't my goal. That's not winning to me. Plantation state is not victory. So, and I don't see where this libertarian crap goes, except to a kind of monarchy. Especially if you're going to let unlimited inheritance, it's legacy wealth all over the place. It's just the acquisition of surplus forever. Once you gain ownership, you maintain ownership, and that can only inflate prices of stuff. I guess another premise statement. I guess I should somehow. Saying premise and doing this almost quote thing probably is a good idea, because these are the things that I think are sort of important. So not only should we understand bank digits as checks, we should understand that all of the value of any of those checks, of these IOUs, is essentially because they're IOUs on the stuff that exists. So how you invest in the future is by declaring some of the stuff you have surplus and using it as incentive wages, future wages. So the fact that we have an economy where money is required to finance progress, in the sense that you can't make money on the road till you build the road. This might be the way to look at it, right? Like most things require you to put the money in before you can get the profit out. And it's that scenario that creates this little fudge in the, glue in the gear work of how simple life would be if it wasn't like that, if you didn't have to do the investing before you could do the proving. So it's not like you can prove it a success before you invest in it. And that's sort of the downside. And that's what makes all this debatable. I'm arguing that we as a collective society, arguing about what would be worth having, can figure out what to invest in better than some selfish asshole trying to figure out how he makes the most money. See, I don't think people will vote for small print and deceptive advertising and all the other crookeries and rookeries that are out there if they're given a choice to say, no, I'd rather we do it more rationally. I don't want somebody having the right to lie to me or deceive me or to trick me or to, force me to do all this fine print stuff and go look up words in the dictionary and all this other shit before I sign a contract. So, I just don't buy this premise that we can't figure out a way to employ people and encourage them to acquire skills without making everybody into a selfish asshole. I don't think everybody has to be. I don't think you have to glorify selfishness, and that's what essentially they're glorifying it. You just have to understand selfishness. So I guess what I'm saying is yes, understand that we're selfish and feed our selfishness just enough to get us to do what we need to do to be productive. But don't give the game to it. Stick with the idea that you want to have a game of rules, not a game of rule breakers. Alright. As I said right here, calling money cash is just, in my opinion, foul. Cash is, I've described it, but it's hard to describe it perfectly. But it is it's a uniquely created thing, and it becomes the standard. All the other money is denominated in the cash. So anything becomes the standard. Anything you use, it's standardized. So whether you standardize with a commodity or you standardize on cash, it doesn't matter. It's the standard. It's not that the thing makes it the standard. It's made the standard by being the standard. And cash is the standard. And it's a good standard in the sense that it has controllable integrity. So it's a sensible thing to have. I have no opposition to digitizing it all. I think the serial number thing really should be a way to do it. That should be the new cash. Should be every dollar should be a serial number, and we should know where every dollar is by its serial number all the time. Who owns the dollar? Should be part of swiping and doing all the stuff we do with our digity crap. The serial number should be just going to the new owners, and so no one could duplicate it or counterfeit it, because the serial numbers, we'd already know that that piece of cash is in New Jersey, so it can't be spent in California. I mean, we can make cash into something really durable in the future, if we choose to be responsible as a civilization. Of course, there's going to be people who don't want to be responsible to civilization, so they want money they can counterfeit and steal, because they're thieves. Anyway, so gold cash will not stop money making. So again, I think it's just impractical to say, if you're going to stop all, you're going to pretend that you're going to say that nobody can lend money except in the form of gold. I think you're just going to create a huge black market. I would say, for borrowing money, because there's going to be people who, let's see how to put this. Yeah, I don't know a good way to put it. I just think it's going to make it pretty much impossible to fully monetize anything if the commodity itself costs money. So it's like, I don't even know how you could properly mortgage a house this way without creating a duplicate of the house in the bank, a duplicate expense. So to mortgage a house, you would have to have the equal amount of gold to the value of the house. So not only would you have the deed of the house in the bank, you would have to create or loan the value of the house in gold. Would also have to be consumed by this process and be stored in a bank somewhere. So I just don't see how that would make the economy more, how that would be able to build more roads to prove that road building made sense. I don't see how that's going to create any kind of environment that makes it possible for people to access credit. It's going to make credit. It's going to tighten credit extremely. So the only people who are going to be able to do any experiments are the rich. So we're back again, monarchy again. We're back in the old style world that progressed so slowly, because the only people that could afford to do anything were rich people. All the science in the past was done by rich people. There was nobody else who could do science. Nobody could write books. Nobody could do anything unless you were wealthy. And so all you're going to do is basically make it a wealthy man's world and create little opportunity for somebody who doesn't have money to do anything, because they're not going to be able to afford to do anything or try anything, pretty much. So anyway, lots of the whole video was just full of silly examples of, oh well, back in 1962, or back in 1919, or back in 1742, or all that kind of crap, and no acknowledgement of the world changing fundamentally. The fact that the world got smaller, and now we can exploit people in different countries and exploit their desperation and their overpopulation. That's another thing. They keep talking about how little growth is growing. Well, population is growing slower, so that's one of the reasons why we should grow less. I mean, just simple things like that. I mean, so it's just so full of jargon. It wasn't a very interesting video. So gold works is what the Forbes said. And it's like, I don't know what that means. And like I say, he says it's rare but not too rare. Cash is rare but not too rare. Cash. And again, everybody understands the difference between cash and a check. Come on, you do. You understand the difference. Anyway, I don't know what this currency. Yeah, so what's the difference? Gold, silver, platinum, commodities as currency is, what sense does it make to make a commodity your currency? You're just going to inflate the value of the commodity. So you take a valuable resource like gold that could be used in a lot of technology, and you so overprice it that it can never be used for any technical purpose. So no matter what commodity you pick, silver or platinum, if you pick silver, you know, you're just going to make it unusable in electronics and other things. Platinum, I mean, just there's no, it's just not a great idea to make a currency out of a commodity, especially a commodity that be dug out of the ground, because then you're just going to encourage people to figure out quicker ways to dig it out of the ground, dirtier ways, environmentally less friendly ways to just dig up money. That's not a great idea, especially the way technology is advancing. You can just imagine people creating mechanized robots that just, you know, plow underneath everybody's ground and into their well water and into everything, trying to eat gold out of the ground. Because it's everywhere. There's gold in my shirt. There's gold everywhere. And so really it's all just about having technology capable of extracting the gold out of the substrate. And if you make gold, it's just not a great idea to monetize commodities. And yeah, I just think it's really bad to have people investing in these things. I don't think I'd let it happen, actually. The standard is still going to be the relative cost. So it's really going to matter is how much does a glass of water cost, and how much does it cost for food, and how much does it cost to have a roof over your head, and what are you getting paid at work. And how much of that's what's going to matter to people. What the currency is not going to matter. It's just that we have the right proportions of your salary expended on these things to live that's going to matter. And again, the thing that has made this difficult to have a decent life is the horrible burdens created by interest payments on debt, rent on debt. That's the burden. That's the thing wearing us down. Yeah. And it's certainly the gross disproportion of wealth holdings has certainly destroyed regular consumption, and we've become a service economy. So instead of doing socially constructive work for all of the people, we're doing work for rich people because they have all the money. And that's another huge negative of the equality thing. That was something Forbes said that was just hilarious. Yeah, equality. If you're into that kind of thing, you know, there's a guy who inherited the money, right? I mean, fuck. Where would this guy be without daddy's money, right? Is he brilliant? Is he, you know, does he just strike you as some guy who'd really make it on his own? You know, I mean, you know, fuck. He'd be a clerk somewhere. I just, you know, it's just so obnoxious to have these assholes who didn't earn it, you know, talking about how, you know, equality if you're into that kind of thing. Fuck. I mean, he thinks he's a better man, and he didn't prove it, didn't earn it. He's just taking the title and wearing it. He's a pussy. Anyway, alright, oh, you know, and then they talked about having multiple currencies, and you could just imagine Walmart money, Google money, I mean, come on, Google dollars. Oh, please. What a disaster that would be. I mean, why they even talk like that would make any sense. Have a bunch of shystery businesses. Just imagine all, what, they're going to make it counterfeit proof somehow too? I mean, come on. Oh, it's just idiotic. They brought up Milton Friedman, who is, you know, not a great thing to bring up. The other guy was a Reagan. The other guy who spoke was a Reagan economic advisor, and you're just like, oh, gee, that's brilliant. You know, when the guy's advising on voodoo economics, brilliant. You know, borrow and spend. Floating all boats. Anyway, so I don't know really what the subject is. The idea of getting rid of fractional reserve banking is, you know, it's interesting just to think about. But again, I still think if you're going to have capitalism as the way to invest in a society, then you're going to have to make borrowing money cheap, not expensive. So I don't see how having a gold standard and no fractional reserve banking would do you any good whatsoever in terms of investment access. So I don't see an advantage there at all. Again, cash is not broken. Debt is broken. And a gold standard, does a gold standard mean that nobody can get a credit card? It's not backed by gold? That somebody, like the bank, has to hold the gold for your expenditures on your credit card? They have to have it in a vault somewhere? The amount of gold you're going to spend on your credit card? I mean, you could imagine how expensive your credit card is going to be if the bank has to hold reserves equal to what you're going to spend. I mean, that doesn't sound like a good idea, does it? It doesn't sound smart to me. It doesn't sound like you're going to get full employment out of that system. And again, full employment is what we want. We want to get the most productivity we can out of each other. We want people to be as smart and as clever and as capable as possible. You know, we just want to get everybody as, you know, we want people to waste as little of their time in nonsense and in destructive pursuits, and try to just be optimum functioning human beings, to be very good consumers and very, very productive workers. And I don't think this system, especially with a gold standard, is going to do any of that, because it's a system based on making personal profits, not creating social profit. And they're very different things. See, Nick always brings up too, you know, I'll talk to you, Nick, I'll talk to you personally, Nick. You know, you bring up on your website a lot solar energy, and how you think this is, at least you imply that this is the future, or this is a good idea. And look how it's being done. It's being done in this, it's a perfect example of why capitalism sucks. Because it's being done in this shyster manner that's only 25% efficient, if lucky. It might be even less efficient than that. Australia, up to right now, they're finally building one, doesn't even have, all of Australia, there wasn't one solar farm. All the solar panels were on individual private property. There was no farm. There was no rational, you know, high density, you know, use of solar energy. And this isn't, and the solar voltaics aren't even the best way to glean solar energy. I mean, it's more efficient to use the mirrors with the, you know, heat the water tank thing. But yeah, this energy production should be on the largest scale. You know, I think hydro can be done on small scale, but the efficiency of solar energy is in large scale farm production. That's where you gain all the greatest efficiencies, because you can track the sun, you can do all the, you know, the smart stuff. Putting this shit on people's roofs is idiotic. It's the stupidest way to, well, it's not stupid, you could put it in the basement and it could be even dumber then. But this is about as bad gets as a way of applying this technology in terms of efficiency. So we have sacrificed the social good entirely to satisfy profiteering. And that's all this is, right? This is just profiteering, right? If solar energy actually was economically viable, the company wouldn't be putting it on people's roofs. They'd be building the plant and selling people cheaper electricity. But instead, they can make more money on a solar racket, okay, by putting the crap on their roofs. And so, you know, this is the difference. Should we let selfish fuckers do it the 20% efficient way, or should we have smart people, at gunpoint, figure out a better way to do it? Maybe we could just arrest some smart people, throw them in prison, and force them to give us a better idea than putting a bunch of solar panels on, flat on people's roofs that don't track the sun, that don't necessarily even point at the sun directly. I mean, and then each one has to have its own controller and its own inverter. I mean, the expense alone of just each house having a controller and inverter. I mean, fuck. It's idiotic. So, that would be my first shot at this subject. And I don't know, maybe you want to confine the subject more narrowly, or say, yes, this is about getting rid of fractional reserve banking and, obliging credit card companies to have huge amounts of gold in their vaults to cover credit. I think that would be the implication. So anyway, enough said, right? Yeah. Lots of stuff in there, so there are other subjects. This whole idea that we're just mortgaging stuff to create the future investment wages to create progress, forward progress. So we're mortgaging the past to create incentive carrots to get people to move into the future. Some sort of metaphor like that. And it'd be a lot neater if we didn't have to mortgage or pay rent on where we are to afford the future. It'd be just better if there was some other mechanism that just provided the jobs and provided the work, and we just assumed, okay, that we did it rationally enough to be cost effective. That in the end we're going to win more than we're going to lose. That most of the ideas are going to be winners, not losers. Like a public library. Anyway, till next time. And such.